Good evening and welcome to Gunner Shot once again. This is the second episode of Gunner Shot Technology. In the last episode, we spoke of the trends in AI, and today we're going to talk of the trends in social media because both are interconnected at some point of time, or rather, they're umbilically interconnected these days in the era of deepfakes. And AI has a lot to do with deepfakes. But then that's not the subject of this discussion. And we're going to get Vijay over again to talk about it. Hi, Vijay. How are you? How things?
I'm good. How are you, Dad? Everything well?
Oh,
Happy
I'm
New
fine.
Year.
I'm fine. And I must tell you before I start go further. I got very interesting feedback. In
Okay.
fact, very encouraging feedback on our last discussion on AI,
Okay.
and a lot of people have welcomed it. And they like the idea of a father son duo talking of technology,
Okay.
right? So I think this is the time for the father to give way to the son. So we're going to talk today of social media. Take it on.
Okay. First of all, to everyone, Happy New Year. Happy 2024. And thank you, everyone, for the encouraging response. Uh, and feedback is always good. So thank you. Uh, yeah. So, like we were chatting last time, the second interesting thing in my list of technology trends that really broke through this last year 2023 was social media. uh, Social media actually had a late start in terms of becoming a trend. uh, like nothing major was happening. I don't think anyone expected anything around social media to really happen in 2023. 2023 was supposed to be the year of AI, but something interesting happened in the middle of the year. I don't remember the exact month. I think it was June, may have been July. But we had the launch of Threads. Threads is a new social media network. It is launched by Meta, the parent company of Facebook, Instagram, and WhatsApp. And it is a text-based social networking, app and service. What I mean by that is, it is like the Instagram is a photo and video-based social networking service. Facebook is much more traditional, friends and discussions and groups based networking service. WhatsApp is also a social network. It's most related to instant messaging, but Threads is more like Twitter or X, where it's all text based. You can follow people, etc. Clearly, it caused a lot of interest, a lot of controversy, because it seemed to have a lot of features from X and Twitter. Uh, and which honestly, my take is it shouldn't really matter. It's perfectly fine that we have competitors to Twitter and X. And it really took everyone by surprise when Meta came up and launched it. A couple of quick numbers. It's like I'll just quote one figure really. Meta did report that they have about 100 million users in their last earnings call for Threads, and I expect this to only grow. If you look at the product portfolio of Meta over the years, they are very, very good at creating a new product, scaling it to a billion users, and then figuring out how to monetize. So we will not see monetization here uh, all that quickly, but we should expect this social network to grow to a billion users over time. uh, it happened with WhatsApp, it happened with Instagram, and it happened with Facebook. So that's Threads. But Threads is not the real story here. The Threads is Meta launched Threads, absolutely, but The more interesting story here is the way they claim to have built Threads, and we have already seen some evidence of that claim being true. Uh, they are building Threads on an open system, an open protocol of communication and social media. I'll stop here in case you have any questions about Threads, because now we're going to take a sharp turn uh, to something entirely different and almost alien like to many people. So,
Okay, fine. I must tell you that, after I heard about Threads, I opened a Threads account.
mhm,
And yeah, I found it quite similar to Threads.
Twitter.
Only thing is, I've been posting on Threads also. I mean,
Yeah.
I found it similar to X or Twitter.
Yeah.
I've been posting on it, but I don't get followers. I don't see that people are reading. I don't get visibility. Of
Right.
course, I'm a poor Instagram. I mean, my Instagram account is very poor because my videos can't get loaded on it. I mean, I don't know how to do it.
Right.
So, at this point of time, I think it's just a launch. They're
Yeah.
testing waters.
Yes. I think it is. That's a fair assessment. They are testing waters. The other thing to understand is that they're still growing. And for instance, not every community that was active on X or Twitter has migrated over to Threads. Like one of the communities I miss from the Twitter days was cricket Twitter. Cricket is wildly the cricket community is wildly active on X today. It's even active on Mastodon. That's a completely different social network, and we're going to talk about that in a second. But that hasn't migrated over to Threads. Uh, some communities have, like the technology community has migrated. Some research communities have migrated. NBA, all talk about basketball has migrated. So this migration will take time. Uh, and not all communities may end up migrating. Not all communities need not migrate. And that's the beauty of having multiple of these social networks. So you can pick and choose where you want to engage with other fellow community members. And yeah, so yeah,
And or you can do it all together. I
you
mean,
can do
for a person who's broadcasting and has content to distribute, you can put it on all platforms. The way I look at it.
that's a very interesting point, and in fact it ties nicely into what I'm going to talk about next. So when you say you have broadcast it on all platforms, you have to create accounts on all platforms, right? You have to actually log into each platform and put out your message, share your content. uh, is that your experience? Like you have to do this on
Yeah, yeah.
Threads
I
and
mean, let me put it this way. When I have to distribute content, I go onto WhatsApp and load everything onto WhatsApp, my WhatsApp channel.
right,
And then I have to go to Twitter and load it there. Then I have to go to Signal and load it there.
right.
And Telegram also picks up. So there are all these because that's the way I propagate. I mean,
Right.
I don't have an advertising firm to propagate Gunner Shot.
Yeah. Yeah, and that is a distinct facet of social media. It has always been like that. If you want to post your content on multiple places, you have to create accounts for all of those platforms, and you have to log in manually or through some means and make sure that your content is like a separate post goes on each one of those platforms. Let me draw your attention to a different communications technology. It's been around for a while. I'm going to talk about email for a little while. Email is also a communications technology. Like it's not social media, but it is used to exchange information with other people, and you can broadcast information on it. When you're emailing it to a distribution list or a group of people, whatnot. Uh, Interestingly, though, you don't need to create multiple email accounts to be able to send email to people from other services. Like, for instance, if I have a Gmail account, I can very well send you an email if you have an email on, say, outlook.com. Is that a fair assessment of how email is versus social media?
Yeah,
Right.
I agree.
Sorry, say that again.
No, I agree. You can, if you have an email, you can send it to Yahoo, Hotstar, or whoever.
Right.
Various mail accounts.
Exactly. And you don't need to. You can have multiple mail accounts. There's nothing stopping you. But you don't need to. In no universe on the internet will Gmail say that you can only send email to other Gmail users, or in no world will Yahoo say you can only send email to only Yahoo users. You can email anyone you want to. And relatively speaking, email presents itself as a more open system. It allows for different email service providers to exist without the users having to create an account on each one of those services. You can get by with just one email, but that's not entirely true of social media, right? But imagine if it were. Like, imagine for a second, like, there's just a hypothetical. There's a complete hypothetical, and this is what I want to dig into today. Imagine if you had just an X account, like a Twitter account, and you could follow or friend someone on Facebook with that account without having to create a Facebook account. Imagine that you could follow or friend someone on Instagram or Threads. Imagine that you could see posts that they make on that social network. So imagine you have an X account, you are following someone on Threads, and whenever that friend of yours posts something on Threads, or the content creator posts something on Threads, it shows up in your Twitter feed, it shows up on your X feed. That almost seems like an alien world, right? It almost does away with this insane but important requirement. Like, if you have to follow someone on Threads, you almost need a Threads account today. If you have to follow someone on Instagram, you need an Instagram account today. But imagine that requirement in this hypothetical world weren't necessarily the case, that you could follow anyone in any social network by creating just a single account on a social network. To you, I'll just take a pause here. For you personally, how would it simplify, for you to share posts and content, to your followers, for instance, or for you to
Oh,
consume social media?
that's a huge thing from my perspective, and it's a huge problem from another perspective.
Okay, I'm curious to hear one.
The first is, if I have to distribute content, I can do it any way I want,
Right.
not an issue.
Hmm.
Okay, so I at the click of a button, my content goes to everyone.
Hmm.
But the reverse is also true. Everyone's content comes to me on a click of a button. I lose the choice of what I want to see,
Right.
and then I might be flooded with what I get.
That that
I
that
mean, just think of a system where I get something from Twitter, I get something from everything, and it just falls. And then there's also a chance that this could keep looping around.
But what if you could, just as in Twitter, like Twitter has 400, 500 million users, you don't get content from necessarily from everyone. You can choose whom you follow, and you can definitely set up what you want to, what the kind of content you are interested in seeing and the kind of content you're not interested in seeing. Imagine that you don't lose any of that. Like, imagine that you're not necessarily getting content from every other social network, but only the accounts and other social networks that you explicitly choose to follow. uh, do you still see that as a challenge? Like, do you still see a flood of information if you are in
No,
charge, or if you are in control of whom you choose to follow?
yeah. So if I have a control of what I want to see and what I choose to see,
Hmm.
and what I this thing, then there's no problem. Like in email, I mean,
Right.
you have. So if you go by that analogy, you need something like what the email has. These days, some goes into spam and some goes into, because a lot of spam will come in in this kind of a story.
And a lot of spam
Right?
shows up, like, a lot of unwanted stuff shows up even in our current social media feeds. And sometimes you just say, don't like report this or hide this or mute
Yeah.
this, and that helps the social media feed algorithms, no matter which platform, to understand what it is that you want to see, and it helps it train your preferences a little better. So you're not. Let's pretend that you're not losing that ability in this hypothetical world, but you do gain the ability to share your content with uh, other users, other people who have their accounts on other social media networks. So for a minute, and I'm not saying that this universe, this world will not have its issues. It almost certainly will. But today, I just want to focus on I want to take an optimistic viewpoint of this.
Yeah.
Uh,
Go ahead.
so obviously, this world is hypothetical. You can't, if you have an X account, you obviously can't follow someone on Instagram. Nor am I saying that this is going to happen necessarily in the future. But there is this thing called Mastodon. Uh, it is based on open source technology. It is based on an open protocol. I will not get into the technical details of what they are, but Mastodon is an implementation of this idea, of this hypothetical world where you have multiple social networks, and users on one social network can communicate with users on another social network. In fact, let me clarify something. Mastodon is not one social network. It's actually a collection of multiple social networks. It's like if you had multiple Twitters or if you had multiple Instagrams. That's what Mastodon is. In terms of scale, it is significantly smaller than these other platforms. We are only talking about a few tens of millions of users, like still users in the millions. But that is if my understanding is right, that is the uh, entire user population of everyone on every social network under the umbrella of Mastodon. And I repeat, Mastodon is not just one social network, it is a collection of multiple social networks. And
Okay.
if you as a user are free to go create your account, your social networking account on any one of those networks, but you get to talk to, you get to like, you get to comment on, you get to follow users from any one of those social networks within the Mastodon umbrella. And more interestingly, they get to follow you, they get to like or repost or share the content that you're posting. uh, so that is an interesting little experiment that Mastodon has been running. It's been there for a while now. Uh, so that is a real social media experiment, let's say, that's happening. So the interesting thing is, when Threads went and implemented well, when they launched, one of the things that they promised very early on was that they will adopt the open communication protocols that allows Mastodon to spin up multiple social networks and have the users in those social networks talk to each other. Right? All of this, like the way multiple social networks in Mastodon are able to talk to each other, is based on an open, standardized internet protocol. It's called ActivityPub. I'm just putting a name on it. Don't worry about what it means. Like, it's just, I'm almost using it as a noun so that I can refer to it. But ActivityPub allows, if a social platform implements the ActivityPub protocol, it's an open protocol, then users on that social network can interact with anyone in Mastodon, any other social network in Mastodon. And that's interesting because all of a sudden here is a very serious contender in the social media and the social networking space that is committing from day one that they will implement this new social network using open standards and open protocols that actually enables any Mastodon user to follow anyone in threads and any threads user to follow anyone in Mastodon. And it really is a, it I don't know how else to phrase it except to say it is a reset of social networking. It's a reset of how communication happens in these broadcasting channels. Social networking is ultimately just a massive broadcasting channels. The fact that you can have users from one social network communicate and talk to and spread their message on a completely different social network is a wildly uh, radical idea, and it is this year, in 2024 we expect it to go mainstream. uh,
So,
yeah.
where is at what stage is this Mastodon in?
Well,
I've heard
Mastodon.
about that. I've heard about it for the past 5, 6 months.
Right. So
But
Mastodon is a live and active social network, like, or rather, a collection of social networks. Like, you can go create a Mastodon account today. The only additional step, aside from setting up a username and password and the display picture, is that you have to figure out which of those social networks you want to be a part of.
okay,
Mastodon is an umbrella term for multiple social networks. So you just need to pick which one you are interested in being a part of. There is anyone can set up a Mastodon server. It is a little technical, but it is entirely feasible. There are a few legal and regulatory challenges that you want to be aware of when you want to spin up your own social network. But other than that, it is fairly open. Like, it and the idea that Meta comes along and says we're going to create a new social network and we intend on scaling it to 1 billion users. And oh, by the way, we've already scaled it to 100 million users. And since day one, we have been committing to and testing out how this can be compatible with the open standards that Mastodon has implemented and put out there, is massive. And the reason, like I said, it's massive is because this really takes open standards and open protocols and social networking to the mainstream. So that's where we are at. Threads has already publicly started testing this with a few Threads accounts. So we have actual evidence that Threads is testing it out in the background. The other interesting thing is this need not just be for social media. uh, this can be true for literally any feed of information. A good example is blogs, right? So if a website has a blog, and the blog is nothing but like a sequence or feed of posts one after the other, that can also adopt this activity pub open protocol, and all of a sudden your blog will be can be followed by multiple people, as many people as whoever is interested in your blog from Mastodon. Like, then you don't have to go create a Mastodon account necessarily. You can if you want to, uh, but you don't need to create a separate account for your blog, just as a lot of people, a lot of content creators might do. They might have their own personal account, but they also create like a blog account, and then they share content through their blog account as well. But you don't need to do that anymore. So if you have a WordPress blog today, on wordpress.com, you can enable a simple setting, and that allows your blog posts to show up on Mastodon. And if Threads goes through with their commitment, which I believe that they will, uh, it will pretty soon start showing up. I think by the end of 2024, there's a real chance that WordPress.com blogs and their posts, at least some of those blogs, their content, their blog posts will start showing up on Threads as well.
if you
Uh,
want it.
if you want it, like, it's entirely opt-in.
Okay.
And uh, but based in on those opt-ins from both your end that you want that content to show up on Threads and Mastodon, but also opt-in from users on Threads and Mastodon that they want to follow you and subscribe to new posts that you may post on your blog. So it needs a two-way opt-in. But once that opt-in is there is a free flow of information from a blogging service like WordPress to a cluster of social networks like Mastodon and a more mainstream social network like Threads. And like I said, this is just an open protocol for how information feeds end up showing up across platforms. So it doesn't need to be restricted to blogging platforms or social media networks. I know of at least one tech news website. Like, it's just a website. It's not even a full. Like, you can't go create an account there. But they have also committed to going and implementing this open protocol. So every time they post a story, it can show up in Threads or Mastodon, and you can actually go follow that tech news journalistic website completely from your social media feed or completely from your WordPress account.
So
Uh,
that means that, so far you've spoken of, say, WordPress, Mastodon, and uh,
Threads.
Threads getting linked,
Yeah.
right? Is there any other linkages in the offing?
Yeah, like I said, like any website, anywhere in the world, if it decides to implement this open protocol called ActivityPub, it automatically starts showing up in these social media feeds. It And people can start following new content that shows up on their website. Let me give you a quick example. Imagine if the public health, like the Ministry of Health, for instance, wants to put out new notifications for any number of things. Say a new version of the COVID vaccine, or the fact that kids should get their polio drops, any public health messaging campaign that they want to run. If their website is built on WordPress, all right, or if they choose to implement like a ground up implementation of this open standard, all they have to do at that point is let everyone know that they're also available on Mastodon and pretty soon on Threads, and you will be able to follow them. And as soon as you start following them, any new public health messaging post that they make on just their website, it will start showing up in your social media feed. And so you're talking
Okay.
about a legitimate, verified source of information coming from, it can only come from the Ministry of Health. It's not just some random social media account, right? Not everyone can create it. So in some interesting ways, it also has verification and trust built into it. Uh, and at that point, you're getting live updates about public health. And so that's just one interesting.
Yeah, I get the point. So you're going to change the way things are going to be broadcast,
Yes.
right? So there's a huge economic value in this, the way I look at it.
Okay. How do you look at
I
it?
mean, in the sense that uh, now the moment you start going, you don't have to go to a particular platform. You
Mhm.
can say go on to hook on to Mastodon. So Mastodon will start undercutting everyone else in terms of revenue and everything else.
It may not. The interesting thing about this is there will need to some rethink around how ads show up in these social feeds will need to be done. There will be some rethink around what other revenue streams might make sense in this, patchwork of social networks, almost. Like, for instance, Gmail is a open email standard, but it ends up showing you ads whenever you go to gmail.com. That hasn't undercut Gmail or Google's ability to make money out of advertising. But at the same time, if you are receiving that email on Yahoo, you're not seeing a Gmail ad. So yeah, there'll be some rethink, but we have examples just in the email space to tell us that the revenue models based on advertisements today don't necessarily need to collapse, and if
Right.
anything, find a nice equilibrium.
Okay. I see where it is. So it's going to be a major revolution. So instead of having a linear way of getting into applications, there is a networked and a parallel way of getting into applications
That's right.
and choosing feeds the way you want.
Right.
Right? Doesn't it jack up the space and the scope for any kind of information warfare which has to be undertaken?
Oh, it like I said, I was taking a very utopian and optimistic view of all of this. It does again, just as I said, we need to have some rethink around how revenue models will work. We'll need to have some rethink around how information, or rather disinformation campaigns will be waged, and they will be waged. Uh, you spoke about deep fakes and generated content with AI coming to the fore. Like yeah, like all of them will play out in this ecosystem as well. But go what gives me hope is that this protocol is not just meant for social networks. Like I said, if there is a website and it's called ministryofhealth.gov.in, there's only one body in the world that is authorized to, with that https colon slash, like there is only one body in the world that is authorized to post content there. And as long as it is implementing on a web stack that also adheres to this open information feed protocol, ActivityPub, that information is then coming from a verified trusted source.
Yeah, that I see. So you could get information from verified trusted sources. So there is a verification process which you can put in place, which
It's
is
baked in.
yeah. But equally, the disinformation campaign also could be built around this. So that brings huge challenges,
Totally.
right? And then we'll have to see how regulation everything. So this is going to break the social media, concept which we have today.
Yes, it is going to reset what we think of as social media. We today social media are, a bunch of 8 or 10 silos that you have to plug into every time you want to broadcast information.
Right.
There is a chance, there's a real chance that if the reset happens, if Threads succeeds, and if Threads actually implements as a good faith act on their part, this open activity pub protocol, again, which I think all signs suggest that they will, there is a real chance that all of this comes mainstream. Major players like WordPress have already
Yeah.
subscribed to this, and there is good reason to be optimistic in around internet communications in 2024.
So when I look at it, I see AI, the trends which are in AI, which we spoke of last week, and the trends in social media, which outlined,
Yeah.
of a network of social media,
Hmm.
right? Which means that the whole scene is going to explode this year
Oh yeah,
into,
like
into directions which we probably really can't forecast at this point of time. Is it
yeah,
right?
very difficult to forecast. On the one hand, AI has given us incredible tools to generate content at a scale that I don't think we have ever seen since the invention of the printing press, going back to the time of Gutenberg, where we went from manual calligraphy to printing pamphlets and books overnight. And couple that with this very interesting reset of how we broadcast said information or said content. Now, it is not necessary that this reset will cause that broadcast to go exponentially. one thing that might happen is that a piece of content might go and might just echo around in a very, very small bubble. That may be good, that may be bad, we don't entirely understand,
But
but
there's a change happening.
there is definitely a change happening. And I
Yeah.
think it's not Threads that launched. I mean, Twitter has been seeing multiple competitors. It's the commitments and around how they promise that they're going to build Threads, and some of the follow throughs that we have seen so far. That
Yeah.
was interesting.
So that's, I think today we've covered a lot of ground in terms of understanding the concept which is going to come up,
Yeah,
the disruption in social media which is on the horizon,
yeah,
right? So two things we've spoken of. We've spoken of AI. We've spoken of a disruption in the social media.
Mhm.
So that leads us to the fact that there are going to be new regulations coming up.
There will be new regulations.
These new regulations are to protect your own turf,
Mhm.
and also to one is to protect turf. Countries will start protecting their turf, and the second thing is to protect content,
Potentially.
right? Potentially to protect content, and also to protect their own uh, you know rights. Firms will have to start protecting their rights if this goes, so this proliferation of social media takes place. But then we'll leave that for another day. I think
That
our third episode we should concentrate on how this reform, or rather how does the you know rights issues
yeah.
control this explosion which is going to have, or the regulatory mechanisms are going to tackle this explosion in AI and social media combined in this year,
Yeah,
right?
that sounds fair, and
Yeah.
there's definitely a lot
So,
to be spoken of and talked about there.
okay. So, fine. So, with this, today's episode will close down. And thanks a lot.
Yeah,
So, till next episode, where we're going to talk of the regulatory challenges and the regulatory framework change, which is happening already,
it is happening.
right? Which is already happening. It is not as if I'm talking off thin air, it's happening. And Vijay will explain this to us sometime in the next episode. Thanks, Vijay. Thanks a lot. Take care. Have a
Thank,
great day
thank you
and
for having.
enjoy yourself. Bye.
Right. Bye bye.